If your brain feels a little louder right now, a little busier, like your thoughts won't quite settle, even when nothing is technically wrong, I want you to know you're not imagining it. I've been noticing this in myself, and I've been hearing it from so many women lately. A kind of mental restlessness, a buzzing, a sense that your mind wants to go, even though the season is asking you to slow down. And this isn't about productivity. It's not about fixing your mindset. And it definitely is not about trying harder to calm yourself. There's a seasonal reason this happens, one that has nothing to do with willpower. And today I want to share a different way of understanding it. One that comes from an ancient system that looks at the body, the nervous system, and the rhythms of nature together. I'll also share a few simple grounding practices that don't require motivation, discipline, or adding more to your plate. Just small ways to help your system feel safer, steadier, and more settled during this slower, quieter time of year. So if your mind has been feeling extra busy right now, be sure to listen. Welcome to the Self Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD-ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing, and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. So first, happy 2026. And today we're going to talk about busy brains this time of year, but not just ADHD. Sure, our ADHD brains move very quickly. They tend to be very busy and scattered because of how much stimuli we take in, which is a part of why it can be so hard to direct and sustain our focus, especially on something that's not super interesting. So we're not getting the dopamine reward. But that's actually not what we're going to focus on today. I'm going to switch hats and we're going to actually talk about more of a seasonal reason why brains might be more scattered now, and it's not the holidays. Before we get into it, I want to share number one, I'm going to talk about what this thing is and then what to do about it. So today, what we're going to talk about is why brains are likely feeling busier and more scattered right now, besides just the holidays. And we're going to talk about what you can do about that. Before I get into that, I want to share that today I'm wearing a different hat. I'm wearing my yoga teacher hat because we're going to talk about Ayurveda. And I'll share what that is in a moment. But first, I want to say I'm not an Ayurvedic clinical practitioner. I am a yoga teacher who has had some training in Ayurveda, not a ton, a little more than my initial yoga teacher training. So please defer to an clinical Ayurvedic practitioner before you listen to anything I have to say. That's important to understand. And please always, this is not medical advice. These are just some things to try to help slow down your brain this time of year. All right. So unless you are into yoga or Ayurveda already, you might be thinking, what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda is a sister science of yoga that is traditional or ancient medicine in India. It was used as their medicine before modern medicine. And what's key to Ayurveda is two main pieces. One, the focus on digestion, because the philosophy is that if digestion is running well, then the body is running well, the organs are well, because digestion is what moves everything through. So if that's going well, everything else is going well. So a lot of the practices of Ayurveda indirectly or directly impact digestion. Secondly, Ayurveda focuses on the doshas, which is also known as your constitution. It's like the makeup of your body. And you are born with a set constitution. I'm going to talk about these constitutions in a moment to help you understand. But you are born with one or a combination of the three doshas. And that stays with you your entire life, though one or more of the three doshas could be aggravated at a given time. So let's get into it so this doesn't sound clear as mud. So the first dosha we talk about is Vata. Vata dosha is connected to the air element. And Vata dosha is what we're going to focus on today because it is dominant during the fall and the winter. When it's aggravated, there tends to be more dryness, and people who have Vata dosha tend to have more constipation or anxiety. They tend to be smaller boned and slender. So I'm Vata Pitta, which I'm bidoshic. We'll talk about that in a minute. But people who are Vata dosha tend to have very slim figures, small bones. Like I said, you tend towards dryness, dry hair, dry skin, anxiety when you're out of balance. It doesn't mean you're always like that, but just when things are out of balance. Pitta dosha is connected to the fire element. So pittas are very passionate and they can be quite intense. And when aggravated, they can go into anger. So you can see I'm Vata Pitta. I'm very passionate and intense, but I also have some flightiness and scatteredness about me, especially when I'm imbalanced. With the winter, this tends to be a harder time of year for me because I have Vata dosha, and then the winter can aggravate it even further with how it is. But we'll get into that a little more. The third dosha is Kapha dosha, and it is connected to the earth element. So Kappas tend to be more like bigger bodied. They tend to have full, luscious hair, really regular digestive patterns. I often, when I describe kappas, I talk about one of Newton's laws of physics, which is objects in motion stay in motion, or objects at rest stay at rest. So that, like, people who have a kappa dosha are harder to get moving, but once they're moving, look out. And so you might see yourself in that if you're kappa dosha. There are tons of quizzes online if you want to figure out what your dosha is. So you can Google that, or I will definitely try my best to remember to put dosha quiz in the show notes, because it can be kind of fun and interesting to see what your dosha is. Not only because it's like, oh yeah, that's totally me, but then you can learn strategies to help balance yourself so that your dosha doesn't get aggravated, and then you avoid some of the challenges that come when your dosha is aggravated. So like me, you heard that I am Vata Pitta, so I'm bidoshic. You can also be tridoshic. So you can have a mix of two, or you can have all three, though being tridoshic is less common. So that's a little bit about the doshas. And I'm not actually going to get into your dosha and how that impacts you. I'm not skilled enough in that area, but what I can talk about is the impact of Vata dosha on all of us during the fall and the winter. This time of year is a very dry time of year. It is a very airy time of year. So when Vata is aggravated, our skin gets drier. And if you live in the north, where we're in, like in Minnesota, our skin can get so dry here. I don't know that I have any on my hands right now, but they're not cuts, but just like your skin breaks open and bleeds because it's so dry, which is not funny, but it's just so true. It gets so incredibly dry. And of course, the heaters, the furnaces don't help that, but it can be very dry. Your skin and hair can get dry. You might find yourself more bloated or constipated this time of year, and not necessarily just from holiday treats, although that may have played a part. And with Vata dosha, you may notice feeling more scattered or anxious or just wound up. And if that's you, you're not losing it. Vata dosha is all about the movement, which is why so often this time of year, especially as fall really sets in, especially like meteorologically, so it starts to get cold, we want to bundle and snuggle ourselves in a blanket and stay inside and have it be cozy, because inherently, instinctively, we are trying to balance that Vata dosha, because it's a very Vata dosha is cold and dry. So those things that you instinctually want to do this time of year make a lot of sense. And I'm just going to share some additional things that you can do to help. Because there is a way to not have Vata be so aggravated in you, to not have your brain be even busier than usual with ADHD. And in fact, if you have Vata in your doshic, I don't know how you say that, in your doshic, not calendar, doshic makeup, if you have Vata in it, this may even help you year round for you to be mindful of how to get yourself grounded. So, we're going to talk about some ways to do that. And the one I'm going to share last is the one that I've known about for years, never did it because it always felt like it'd be too much of a pain. And it turns out it's not, and it's the best one. So, first, though, we're going to start with the easiest things so that you are more likely to be able to follow through on them, even though the last one isn't that bad. So, first of all, like I said, you're already having an urge to bundle up. And it's really important, like when you go outside, that you're wearing a hat that covers your ears and that your throat is covered. We want to stay warm during this time of year so we're not aggravating Vata more than it's probably already aggravated. So staying warm and cozy. Also eating warm foods. So this is and hearty foods. This is a great time for soups or stew. We want things that are moist. This is not time for a dried out bread with nothing on it, or not a great time for raw vegetables. And I'm not here if your doctor says you need to eat raw vegetables or your dietitian, please listen to them. I'm not an expert on that, but generally speaking, if you are in the winter time of year for you, which if you're in Australia listening to this, you're in summer. So that's a whole different thing. You're going to need more cooling. That's a very pitta time of year. So you need the opposite of what we're talking about. But for those of us that are in winter, we just experienced autumn, we need that warmth. Think root vegetables and soups and things that are heated and cooked. Even this is not even a great time of year for a cold salad, but you can actually go online and find ways to heat up your salads so that they are great for this time of year. Usually it does not involve iceberg lettuce, though. That doesn't usually heat up super well. So you can look online for even recipes to balance Vata, is how we say that. Another thing you can do is move more slowly. And this, I've been doing this with my yoga practice, and it has felt glorious. I've even been letting myself this year lay in bed a little bit longer and snuggle with my kitties before I get up for work. And yes, it does mean that I have to set my alarm earlier, and then I have a second alarm just in case I fall back asleep. But that coziness of being under my blankets and with the cat snuggled in is a way to bring in more rest and to move more slowly. And when I get up, I'm trying to allow myself to move at the pace I'm at instead of rushing, which is like a lifelong challenge for me as an ADHDer who's Vata Pitta. Slow your roll should be tattooed somewhere on me, except that the saying's kind of outdated. But that should go slow to go fast is something I was told early in my career as a social worker. So that's just my thing. So slowing down can be really hard for those of us with ADHD, especially if we also have Vata dosha in our doshic makeup. So going more slowly. For me, even my yoga practice, instead of doing like so many standing poses, which is what I tend to love most, I've been letting myself do more reclining poses and poses that are closer to the ground. Number one, because they're grounding, because they're closer to the ground, you're feeling yourself on the ground. But secondly, moving more slowly with them. So instead of like if you're doing a cat cow situation where you're inhaling, moving your belly and chest forward, lifting your chest and your chin, and then exhaling, rounding your spine, lowering your chin to your chest. And you might have done that. You might do that on all fours in your yoga practice. I'm having that take longer. Instead of doing it as quickly, I'm letting it be steady and slow. And that is a beautiful way to get grounded this time of year. Also bringing in brighter colors. I know I tend to have my uniform of gray, black, and blue, but bringing in brighter colors this time of year is also a nice way to balance out some of that Vata dosha. Think about it. Naturally, we do that with the holidays. A lot of, regardless of what holiday you celebrate, they tend to have bright colors. I notice the colors of Hanukkah are that bright blue, and the colors of Christmas are bright green and red. And then even in years when retailers have c done Christmas with, like, bright pinks and greens and reds. There's, like, different shades of it even that are all very bright colors, nothing very muted because it's balancing out the darkness that we experience this time of year when we are tilted away from the sun, which is what winter that's, like, the definition of winter, right? Kind of. I mean, one of them is we're tilted away from the sun. So that's where we're at. Now, I want to share the practice that started doing this year that I read when I first learned about Ayurveda in 2009. And I was like, yes, I'm totally going to do it. And I never could get myself to do it. I even think I bought the stuff and never did it. Of course, I don't know where that stuff went, but it's oiling your body. And that sounds insane because I was like, oh God, that's going to take too long. It's going to be too much. No way. But my yoga teacher was talking about it, and I thought to myself, "You know what? I'm gonna try it this year." It's been particularly dry this year, and instead of waiting anticipantly for the sun to come back, I've actually been leaning into the season more and appreciating the darkness and the stillness and the quiet. So I'm like, why not try this too? So oiling sounds like it's complex. It's actually not a big deal. Basically, you get some sesame oil. You can also use almond oil, and I'll share where to get it in a moment. But you just put a little bit of oil on your hand, and then you rub the bottom of your foot before you go to bed, and then you put your sock on over it, and you do your other foot as well. And if you got any extra oil, I've just been, like, putting that on my shins or what calves, 'cause shins and calves, because it's just there. And then once a week, I oil my whole body that way. And holy moly, it has been so much better. I have felt so much less dry. My digestion has been better than usual for this time of year. Usually this time of year, we can experience a lot more bloating and constipation, and I'm not to give you way more information than you bargained for by hitting play, but that's been better this year. So I'm noticing a nice difference in that. And my goodness, my feet are so soft. Now, you don't want to do this year round, especially if you have an oily skin type, right? I don't want you necessarily putting oil on your face. Although there's that gua sha technique where you use the stone and the oil. That's a whole other thing that I'm just learning to do, so that's kind of fun, but generally speaking, this is meant for your feet, and then I mean, it tends to get on my hands anyway as I distribute it, so it's been a really lovely practice. Now there's supposed to be also in Ayurveda, you can swish oil. I never could get into that. I don't want oil in my mouth like that. It just kinda grossed me out, but you can look up some of those things. So, where do you get this oil, and can you use cooking oil? So my understanding is for sesame oil, you can use like a high grade cooking oil, probably not one of the really cheap low quality ones, but what I did is there's a kind of a natural store in town that it's called Garden of Eden, and they do lotions and they put essential oils in it. It's been around for a long time. If you're in Minnesota, it's on Grand Avenue in St. Paul. But you can also order stuff online, and they had sesame oil online. I thought that was really cool. And then you can, for a couple extra bucks, you can put essential oil in it. So that's kind of fun to play around with that. But basically, you can order a bottle of it. You can also go to Whole Foods or probably any other store like that, like a co-op might have it. They're going to tend to have it though not necessarily in their cooking section, but if you go, they'll have like a beauty or self-care section. They might have sesame oil or they might have almond oil. I know Whole Foods, before I found this sesame oil like Garden of Eden, had some of that almond oil. It was sweet almond oil in the beauty section I think it was by the essential oils even. So there are different places you can get that. And then, like I said, you just oil your body. And if you're like, "Oh, I don't want oil in my whole body," then just do your feet. Just do your feet. And what I did the first couple days, because I was like, I don't think I want oil on my whole body because that's messy. Then what I did at first was Trader Joe's has this salt scrub, sea salt scrub that has oil in it, and then it's like lavender scented or whatever, and so I would just put that on after I bathe and then rinse it off in the shower, but the oil kinda stays on. So that can be a nice way to, first of all, cleanse, 'cause, that salt is a nice way to, cleanse energy and release what's not serving you, but then also you're getting that oil back, and then the lavender is relaxing. So, I'm telling you people, oiling the body has been a game changer for me this year. All right, so this is a little bit different of an episode. We did more grounding, and because I'm a therapist and yoga teacher, I want to teach you one more way you can get grounded. It's not that hard. You just basically, my camera's shaking as I do it. You can stomp your feet on the floor or push your feet into the floor. You can grab your chair and push your heels into the floor. You can also do something like having your feet on the floor and then giving yourself a hug while pulling outward. But then as you inhale, keep the pull. As you exhale, keep the pull, but then rest your arms on your chest. So you're still pulling out, but your arms are resting. This is a nice containing way to get grounded. And there's so many ways that you can get grounded, but I figured since I'm also a therapist and yoga teacher, I should share a couple of those as well. All right. Thanks for being here for this fun little different kind of episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you find some stillness in your life and maybe even in your ADHD brain. Make sure that you like or subscribe or follow if you're not already. And I'll see you next time. Take good care.